as a contrast to this, to the final mystery, the mystery that we shall all be changed, including, as we mentioned for the last few weeks, being given a new name. We've been looking for the last 2 weeks at the name of God, the name that never changes, the I am, the great I am, this name of God, which is found throughout the scriptures, including, as we will see, the use of this name by Jesus is closely associated with the tetragrammaton, or the four-letter Hebrew word, four-letter Hebrew letters, four Hebrew letters, which in Latin are sort of transliterated as YHWH, or what we conventionally call the name Yahweh. This name is closely related in Hebrew to the name of God that God takes in the book of Exodus that we talked about last week at the story of the burning bush, the great I am, or the I am that I am. This name, I am, or the claim of God to be the I am, begins or is first seen in the book of Genesis. And I want to just turn there and read this first passage, which is found in Genesis 15, verse 1. And this is in the context of God's discussion with Abram, who has been called out of the land of Ur to come to a new land. And after these things, the word of the Lord came to Abram in vision, saying, "Do not fear, Abram. I am a shield to you. Your reward shall be very great." So this is the first time that God uses this I am notion. But throughout the Old Testament, as we will see, he uses this moniker over and over and over again. In the passage that we looked at last week from Exodus chapter 3, verse 14, where we looked at the story of Moses and the burning bush, God identifies this name as his own name, and he proceeds to use this I am name throughout the Old Testament. It's used 7 times in the book of Genesis, 21 times in the book of Exodus, 7 times in the book of Psalms, 35 times in the book of Isaiah, 70 times in the book of Ezekiel. And Jeremiah also uses this, or in his prophetic book, the I am statement 21 times. And there are 21 statements concerning the I am from the minor prophets. The final I am in the Old Testament is found in the book of Micah, and the book of Malachi, which is the last book of the Old Testament. And here in verse 1, beginning in verse 1 of chapter 3, "Behold, I am going to send my messenger, and he will clear the way before me, and the Lord whom you seek will suddenly come to his temple. And the messenger of the covenant in whom you delight, behold, he is coming, says the Lord of hosts. Who can endure his coming, and who can stand when he appears? For he is like a refiner's fire." Hi, Jeff. How are you? So this takes us back again in sort of context to the whole fire subject that we were talking about last week. And he refers to this fire as a refining fire. But who can endure the day of his coming, and who can stand when he appears? For he is like a refiner's fire, and like a fuller's soap, and he will sit as a smelter and purifier of silver, and he will purify the sons of Levi, and refine them like gold and silver, so that they may present to the Lord offerings in righteousness. Then the offering of Judah and Jerusalem will be pleasing to the Lord, and so forth. And he then concludes this passage with this short declarative statement in verse 6, "For I, the Lord, I am the Lord, and I do not change. Therefore, O sons of Jacob, you are not consumed." Michael wrote a very nice addition to the blog on this, on his insight on the consuming fire. I'd encourage you to read it if you haven't had a chance to read it. Here he talks again, and I think doubles back on the Exodus story about the fire not being consuming. But this I am, which which is the last I am in the Old Testament, is associated here, as you can see, with fire. And this fire, a refining fire as opposed to a consuming fire, and I think gives insight into this concept of what God's name really means. But today I'd like to take us to a slightly different place to help us understand, I hope, further this moniker of God, the I Am. And I'd like to take us to understand that more into the book of Hosea. In the book of Hosea, we find one of the very strangest stories in all of the Bible. This story in the book of Hosea is a message that comes not only from what the prophet has to say, but something about his life. This is a message which is a living message, something which comes out of the story of Hosea and his life. It's a pantomime, it's a play. It has a powerful message, and it has something, I think, to say about the subject of the great I Am. So this story begins in verse 2 of Hosea chapter 1. When the Lord first spoke through Hosea, the Lord said to Hosea, "Go take to yourself a wife of harlotry and have children of harlotry, for the land commits flagrant harlotry, forsaking the Lord." So this is the strange part of the story, that God would tell his prophet to go to the red light district to find a wife. This seems on the face of it to be completely nonsensical. And I have often wondered, thinking about this story, whether if you found your pastor in the red light district, you would believe his story that he had been sent there by God to find a woman. So he went and he took Gomer, verse 3, the daughter of Diblaim, and she conceived and bore him a son. She actually bears him 3 children, which in the story have significance because God names each of these 3 children, and the names he gives them are not the most complimentary names. Let's just put it that way. The first is a son whose name is Jezreel, and the son Jezreel is a name that comes from a play on words of Israel, and is sort of the anti-Israel or the non-Israel if you look at the Hebrew word Jezreel. Jezreel is also a place. It's a place where the wife of Ahab, whose name was Jezebel, gets pushed from the palace window and falls to her death and is eaten by the dogs. You recall that pleasant story. This place is named the Valley of Jezreel, and so his first son is named Jezreel, which in this case is a pretty desolate kind of name, a place of destruction, and a place which is sort of anti-Israel or non-Israel. She then conceives and bears him a daughter, and the daughter's name is Lo-Ruhamah, which means not to be pitied or not to have compassion. Name her, he says, Lo-Ruhamah, for I will no longer have compassion on the house of Israel, that I should ever forgive them. But I will have compassion on the house of Judah and deliver them by the Lord their God, and will not deliver them by bow, by sword, by battle, by horses or horsemen. And when she had conceived, verse 8, when she had weaned Lo-Ammi, she conceived and gave birth to a son. And the Lord said, "Name him Lo-Ammi, for you are not my people, and I am not your God." This verse 9, this naming of Lo-Ammi, is best rendered in the context of our study that God has seen the condition of his people, that he has understood that they have broken the covenant with him, that the covenant which was set up in his name, which was the name of the great I Am, has now been negated by this renaming of God. And what have they renamed him? They renamed him the not I Am, or the negative I Am, or the non-I Am. the position that God has come to in his relationship with his people. This is symbolized by this story of Hosea and Gomer, because as it unfolds, Gomer leaves Hosea and goes back to her ways of harlotry, disrupting the family and flaunting the generosity and the graciousness of Hosea. In verse 9, this naming verse, I think, is best rendered something like this: call his name Lo-Ammi, which means not my people, because you are not my people, since I am not, I am to you. I don't know if you can sort of, it's a kind of a lot of negatives, but the idea is that the people of God have come to see God not as the great I am, but as the not I am, and that they understand God to be in an adversarial position as opposed to in a covenant relationship. Here God notes that to be reckoned with the people of God, one must simply acknowledge the I amness of God, the transcendentness of God, which I think David wrote about briefly in the blog as well. I am what I was, I am what I am what I will be. And the rest of the story of the book of Hosea parallels this adulterous relationship between God and his people with the story of Hosea and his wife Gomer. It seems that her wayward life finds her back eventually either to the red light district or to a slave market, because the story is picked up again in the 3rd chapter of the book of Hosea, where Hosea finds his wife and he redeems her for 15 shekels of silver. He buys her for 15 shekels of silver and a homer and a half of barley. Don't forget that she was worth not only 15 shekels of silver, but a homer and a half of barley. From Exodus chapter 21, verse 32, the price of a slave is 30 shekels of silver. So the fact that she's purchased for 15 shekels of silver strongly suggests that she doesn't have even the value of a slave. And this sort of loss of value, this utter worthlessness, as it were, of Gomer, is a metaphor, is a demonstration of the kind of worthlessness that we have, in a sense, before God. And yet God still loves us as Hosea loved Gomer, and seeks to redeem her and pays for her this 15 shekels of silver. I thought about this in relationship to the price paid for Jesus, which was 30 shekels of silver. This is the price of a slave, and yet Hosea, like God, comes to redeem her from the slave market, comes to redeem her from the red light district. And the rest of Hosea, the book, is filled with the language of reconciliation. As you see over and over, God reaching out to his people, wanting to regather them as his people. And in chapter 11, he talks about his great loss. How can I give you up? How can I let you go? And this, of course, is the same kind of thing we see in the reversal of this not I am to become the I am again. And I'm wondering, just based, and I've gone quickly on purpose to give us some more time and to have less time for me, your thoughts on the story of Hosea, the thoughts on the concept that there is a possibility of seeing God as the not I am, as opposed to the I am. To see the story of the reconciliation that takes place here, the reversal of this not I am that occurs in this story, and the understanding of the meaning of the name of God that we see from this very short moniker called the I Am. What are your thoughts about this as it relates to understanding something about the name of God?